The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by Tuity Fitness and Brew Bar.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. 'Cause we learned it from you, Dad. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is the Bill and Ted edition. Today we're facing the music. Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, you know him by now, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Production. He's going to give you something glorious. Hit them, Tom.
Don't fudge with me. Has anyone done as much with such a basic part as William Sadler has with death in this series?
Yeah.
I can't think of many other roles like this.
I know, right? And you think about the rest of Sadler's career.
Yes.
And this feels like such an outlier.
It really does.
I mean, he is funny in Shawshank, but
right.
But this movie suggests that he is a truly gifted comedian. He's not doing nearly enough of it throughout the course of his career, right?
Well, also, I would say, this particular movie has some big mistakes, but none bigger than waiting an hour before they put death back in the movie.
Yeah.
His acting choices throughout this and the last movie are just beyond reproach. He has a moment in this movie which is sublime, where out of nowhere he just kisses Keanu Reeves on the forehead.
Yeah.
Completely unmotivated, unrelated to anything, but just such a beautiful addition.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, in a movie where the script is not great. I think those moments read even stronger than they would in... Because there's a ton of those in Bogus Journeys, but he's also got a lot of great lines in that movie.
Right.
Whereas here I noticed just, the additional content that he brings just through his acting choices.
This movie is muddled in a way. This movie feels heavy.
It's
weighted down by ideas, by the script, by characters, by
the way it's filmed.
But yeah.
I'm gonna say right down to the color palette.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a It's like an
You're
overcast.
Right. You're right about that.
It's an overcast day of a movie.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Right. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're of course talking about Bill and Ted Face the Music, a 2020 film directed by Dean Parasot. I'm gonna say. I hope I'm saying that right.
We got to talk about this.
We do.
Because this was a huge. This guy's resume was a huge surprise to me.
Me too. At least, especially considering one movie in particular. But he has directed Home Fries, Fun with Dick and Jane, Red 2. But the standout surprise for me is Galaxy Quest, which is an extraordinarily fantastic film.
Yeah, you think if you can pull off Galaxy Quest, you could pull this.
You could pull this movie off, right?
You could pull this mix of comedy and drama off, because that's what makes Galaxy Quest great.
Yeah,
is that mix of comedy and drama, and that's what they're aiming for here, but it misses the mark by a mile.
By a long shot.
But also, if you look in there, I believe, if I remember correctly, there's episodes of Justified and
there
Deadwood.
are, and so plenty of television and good television.
Well, I mean that is the the cream of television drama,
right?
This guy is capable,
right?
And let's compare this to the guy who directed Bogus Journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Best known for Thunderpants. And yet, if you'd have told me, if you'd have asked me who directed what,
I would have reversed it. Exactly.
I would have reversed it.
Yeah.
Because I know what this guy is capable of.
And that, it fills me with regret. Like, this movie fills me with regret because there's... I just feel forlorn because there are ideas that I like in this movie, but
for sure,
there are moments that I like in this movie. There are choices from actors I like in this movie, and there are interesting things happening in this movie, but in total, it just doesn't work, and it really made me sad because going into it, seeing that it has 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, I was sure that this was going to be, just so much fun.
Yeah.
And we spoke to that briefly.
We did.
In one of the last episodes because
I've still not been able to get my head around it.
I really think it's a COVID thing because I think the critics saw this.
But it would disappoint me more to be living in a miserable time and see a miserable version of a good idea and a good movie.
Yeah,
would depress me more.
You're right.
When I can't leave my home.
I think you're right. But I think what was at play was, and we've spoken to this, I think in our last episode, is about the kind of eternal optimism of the two characters. And that's what the critics seem to latch on to. But
this is a movie about how their optimism has died.
I know. That's the thing.
And that's made very clear from minute one.
What's strange to me is
their hope is dead.
Is that the movie itself seemed to have played some sort of magic trick on the psyche of the critics who watched it when they did. Because bad luck for the movie because it came out at a time where I think it was August of 2020 where we're starting to feel good, and then all of a sudden we have, a new variant, and other things conspire against it. So a budget of $25 million, and just an opening weekend of 1.2 in the USA, 3.4 million in the world, 6.2. What combination of no, it's the movie, or no, it was COVID? I don't know, but both are at play for me.
Right.
It is the movie.
It seems that what harmed the financial returns of the movie seemed to conversely benefit its critical rating.
Yeah.
Right? So the fact, because I think you're right, for whatever reason, the COVID quarantine mindset has tricked people into thinking this movie is better than it is.
Yeah.
You have that movie out there in theaters at a time when, let's face it, we're living in a time when there's no good period of history out there. But like in a cooler moment in our culture, with that movie out in the theaters, I don't think it's getting those reviews.
Yeah.
So it's for the reputation of the movie, maybe it was good luck that allowed this movie to be seen where it was under those circumstances. But yeah, it also prevents it from being anything like the kind of hit that it could have been, even if it was a movie that everyone hated.
Yeah, right. I think despite the fact that the movie doesn't work, it still would have been a bigger hit if COVID wasn't at issue.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And also, you're not able to go out and do the same kinds of publicity that you would normally do, so that's going to affect things as well.
Right. When this movie came out, I remember thinking, being in a place of, if I was going to go see it, I think you probably had, because there was a few months there where I was seeking out movies just at drive-ins.
Yeah.
And I remember this being at the tail end of that.
Right.
But it was, further away from my house, and it was, it's kind of like a thing to commit to the drive-in.
Yeah.
As opposed to my local cinema.
Frequency on your radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Is my car battery going to run out? All that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I think absolutely all those factors And I think the other key context for the movie is that we talked about this as well. This 30-year gap,
Yeah.
and it kind of rebooting a classic franchise property, because I saw a lot of earmarks of how we do that in 2020, or how we do that in modern times in cinema too. Compared, say, to
Well, how do you mean? Like, be more specific.
having just done Dark Fate, I saw a lot of overlap in the modern approach. Well,
Gotcha.
I would say I saw a lot of Dark Fate in here. I also saw a lot of Force Awakens, and it's like, how do you revive a property that has been dormant for so long?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that everyone has the same approach in Hollywood to doing it, and that approach is incredibly unsatisfying.
Well, what do you mean by that? What's the approach? Are you talking about mixing
I'm talking about
the old with the new?
The way the issues like fan service, issues like
okay,
how characters evolve or crucially don't evolve.
Yeah, right.
It's all kind of handled in the same way, and has been, I guess, for the last 5-10 years in exactly the same way. And it's just incredibly unsatisfying to me. It's all kind of it's paradoxical. It undoes itself.
Yeah. Can I ask you, what was your initial reaction to seeing 50-year plus Bill and Ted?
I didn't have a reaction.
No?
I mean, I don't. As human beings, they've worn incredibly well.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Keanu Reeves more so than Alex Winters, but there really is. I'm not focusing at all on how physically different they are, which is remarkable.
No, I wasn't either. But what I did latch on to was, when you have that goofy friend when you're a teenager who's incredibly immature for their age, or silly, or you look at them in a certain way,
yeah,
and you hope that there's like an emotional growth as they get older, and you kind of...
Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you've hit the nail on the head here, because this is, I mean, all the way back to Han Solo and The Force Awakens. I don't want to talk too much about that because we're going to cover that movie at some point.
Right.
But they made a choice for that character to not grow.
Yeah, exactly.
And they do the same here, and I think this is what I mean about it undoing. It's like the things we like about the character unravel.
Yeah.
Because it's based on something that is decades old. And the fact that there's been no change in that time, because you want to keep them how you first saw them.
How you remember them, exactly.
How you remember them, means that there can be no forward momentum in the characterization.
Yeah.
So you're trapped in this cycle of basically fan service for fan service's sake.
Right. And I think that's the
idea that Han Solo is the same guy after everything
that's happened to him, right?
Like he's not even the same. He's like Han Solo the first time we saw him in New Hope.
Yeah.
He's not even Return of the Jedi post post carbonite fever dream kind of Han Solo, right?
Yeah.
He was never the same after he came out of that carbonite. And here it's this, it's a specific choice, and it's kind of feels like this is the way things are done now when you revive a property that's this old, that it's better to have the characters as you remember them, but it makes no narrative sense, and it's not.
And it makes it like it was deeply unsatisfying.
People change in the world,
right?
So it's even in fantasy, it doesn't track.
Well, and I also connect it with something else, because at one point, when we're dealing with their daughters, I start thinking to myself, maybe Bill and Ted should have taken a back seat, and this story should be about the daughters.
But again, this is
and then they kind of start doing that, but almost as I was thinking it, there was just this part of me wrestling where I thought, wouldn't that be a more interesting idea? But then I knew that, hey, fans of Bill and Ted, if you waited 30 years for a new sequel and they weren't front and center, then,
Well,
you might have people complain. And I just thought, take a bigger risk.
Right, and put a positive spin on this. Let's think about where this has worked.
Okay.
Cobra Kai.
Right.
That balance of old and new is perfect.
Is spot on.
So it's entirely possible. Right?
Can
if
be
you
done.
approach it in the right way.
Yes.
And no one loses. Like, no one's watching Cobra Kai and thinking there's not enough of the legacy characters. No one's thinking we're not focusing
I don't
on
like
the
these new characters. Nobody's thinking that.
Right.
Right.
So it's entirely possible, but I think the problem is for a number of years, and maybe it's a cinema specific thing. Maybe it's Hollywood that's up its own ass about this, and TV can be a bit freer with it. It's just the approach is off.
Right.
It's not doesn't appear to be changing, because as you're talking about all this, I'm thinking Crystal Skull. You know, why is it, this movie should really, if you're going to do it properly, should be about Mutt.
Yeah.
And the movie talks itself out of being about Mutt. I mean, most people were grateful for that because of the way Mutt was characterized and played. But
yes,
nonetheless, in principle,
well, and on top of that, it's
you've
funny
also
that
stranded him in the middle of someone else's story.
Right.
And that's kind of what we do here.
It's funny that we're...
And that's over 10 years ago. We should have learned by now.
Right, because this is probably, we're going down a Harrison Ford road, but I think those two particular movies are so wrapped up in him, because I think he kind of wants Han Solo to stay the same, and his only other thing that he wants is for him to die. Indiana Jones, his big thing is, I'm Indiana Jones. We're not passing anything on to anyone.
Right.
That was, so you have an actor who's who perhaps is hamstringing the ability for the movie to move on. But that's that, and this is this.
And I suppose the key difference here is we do see a moment where Bill and Ted pass the gauntlet to their children. It's 5 minutes before the end of the movie.
Before the end of the movie, and also...
It's a kind of a futile gesture.
Yes.
I mean, even if...
It even seems futile in the narrative, like...
Right. By that point, it's sort of... It's a given, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they've spent the whole movie as an irrelevance.
Right.
As they're trapped in this... They're unable to change their own future.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big shift from the characters that we've seen who have the agency to transcend death,
yes,
to
right,
determine their own destinies.
Yes.
And now we have characters who have no free will within time and space.
Right.
Which is another pitfall of this storyline, I think.
I agree, and I kept... This is one of those movies where you watch it, and I constantly was, my brain was just firing, just bing, 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 where I kept thinking, well, here's an idea, but what if you did this with it? And I had like 5 of those ideas, 6 of those ideas, 7 of those ideas as the movie kept going along.
Yeah.
And in that way,
Definitely.
It made it very frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
Because...
I have better jokes for everything. I have better realizations of ideas all over the place here.
Yeah.
I can't believe that we have Keanu Reeves speaking in a fake English accent and we don't do a much ado about nothing joke. I mean,
or a Dracula.
Or a Dracula, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's, especially given how referential the last movie was.
Yeah, right.
It's like, what does this movie refer to except the original Bill and Ted movie and a little bit of Bogus Journey?
So, well, you're right, first of all. But do you, because you seem to suggest that they don't, to me, the one thing that this movie seemed to latch onto from Bogus Journey was the credits.
Right, yeah.
To me,
that's important.
To me, it feels like they take on all of those newspaper articles and all the magazine covers, and they keep all of that in this movie.
the majority of it.
Yeah.
Although they also actually one of the things one of my positive points about this movie is that they do a retcon on the ending of Bogus Journey that I think works really well, which is making Baby Bill and Ted females.
Right.
I think that's one of the best choices in the movie.
I'll agree.
But taking advantage of the ambiguity that those babies were never officially gendered.
Yeah.
Within the movie, I don't like the fact that they have to talk you through that later. It should have never been commented on.
Right.
Because then it's like, oh, you did this great kind of non-binary thing, and then you fucked it up.
And then you fucked it up by
we called them Bill and Ted. We called them Bill and Ted when they were younger because they were so like us. It's like, no, that's much stronger if you just retcon it and don't mention it.
Absolutely.
But anyway, they made that choice, and I think that's one of the strong. So what they do, but they're definitely rewriting the tone of that ending. Because that is an upbeat and closed ending, and they've made it open and downbeat.
And downbeat, yeah.
So they're capturing they're capturing most of what's in that ending.
Right.
But they're implying that it meant something other than it meant, which is just a retcon. And you know, the strength of that ending is that you can sort of do that, but they've chosen to sort of deal with it in a way that's kind of just doing the same thing Bogus Journey did, which is to say, and I think you can only do this once, where the characters reach their destiny, and then you have to come up with a way that to defer that destiny
to undo
for 90 minutes,
right?
And they're kind of doing that again here
because it was a great song, but not the song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So. You know,
but I do still find it.
It's a little Alien 3.
Yeah, right. Because I do find it very interesting that that you keep that they won the battle of the bands and that song was great, but it wasn't the defining song.
Yeah.
Based on this huge lapse in time, and that's the place to go, right?
Right, and then they but it's a mixture of sort of saying, like, retconning that ending, at least in spirit, and saying, it didn't achieve what we wanted it to achieve, or what we told you it did achieve in the last movie.
Right.
And then they introduce a new concept, which is harkening back to Excellent Adventure. Time was folding in on itself.
Yeah.
So it's like, like time travel played a much less important role in the last movie, I think deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here they're focusing on the idea of time travel right from the start. And this is where I think they're doing the trilogy loop back to the original,
right?
They're foregrounding with all those vignettes of various historical characters falling into different parts of time,
right?
I think that there is a sense. I mean, maybe this movie is part of the anti-Bogus Journey argument, which is to say, this is
possible.
The real Bill and Ted.
Yeah,
this is the time travel is the real Bill and Ted. All that nonsense with hell and the bunny rabbits is just bullshit. I think there's a little bit of that.
Maybe there is a little bit of that, but for me, like what I was mentioning about the song before was, it's not just that this movie is taking it in a different direction, because the credits of the last movie actually seem to take it in a different direction. Because the magazines and the newspapers are all talking about the band breaking up at that time. Sure. And so,
And that is followed through on you, and you're right, and I shouldn't give it as much. I think one of the parts of this movie that works, and it reminds me a lot of Wayne's World as well, is this kind of like latching onto real life rock music biography material.
Mm-hmm.
So all the stuff with the band falling apart, Death going solo, the music that they're making now, this kind of avant-garde prog instrumental music that, when bands fall apart, this is the kind of shit they do. Right. So that all of that kind of tracks, because it's based on a kind of it's based on historical reality of rock music,
Yeah,
which
right.
is something that also Mike Myers mines in the Wayne's World movies. But that's the only kind of comedy in the movie that works, and I think it is just because it's so grounded in something that we
Right.
can all
Yeah.
understand. And I'll tell you, one of the other elements of this movie that made me very sad is it made me feel out of touch.
Right. Yes.
And I'm not, I don't expect to go into a movie in 2020 and not feel as out of touch as I am.
Mm-hmm.
I do expect a Bill and Ted movie to give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want a Bill and Ted movie lecturing me about how out of touch I am with modern music.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
modern culture.
that's a great place to end the first segment, I think. And then we'll come back and we'll try to get back into touch with the music and the movie. How about that?
Yeah, we'll do our best.
All right. Right after this. Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. All right, one and all, we're back. Tom and I are here discussing Bill and Ted Face the Music, the 2020 film.
Do you have anything to say about the lack of a apostrophe, possessive
on Ted?
Yeah. Did that bother you? That we don't have apostrophe S in the title? The only one of the three?
Did it first. And then, when you look at the title, you realize, of course, it doesn't need one. And I don't know. Face the Music.
You think that's the problem with the title as opposed to...
I don't know. I can't decide if I like or dislike this title.
It's a very Nelson comment.
I think
I can think of at least two things I don't like about that title. Which I think was Naked Lunch, right? That was the...
That does sound familiar, yes.
I can think of at least two things wrong with that title. But that's never a great place to start with a movie,
right.
Is it? Where you start going, is that like...
Well, I'm going to save it.
Mean?
I'm going to save it, but I have real issues with the end of this movie.
Okay, good. As you should.
Yeah. I got problems. I guess one of my questions for you are, obviously because we don't have George Carlin, although he does appear in the movie anyway.
Yeah, because it's a 2020 movie. So
because it's a 2020 movie.
Talk about someone who's dead,
right,
and was once a character. You have to fucking bring them back to life.
Always.
I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it.
And we're
learning.
I
do not want to see it. It is disrespectful to the person who died. That is it's simple. I don't care if they make Harold Ramis
if
look
we
slimmer.
Asked the estate and they said it was okay.
I just think it's again, it's another one of those things that just comes as standard.
Right. But to your
I
point
don't
earlier,
know
it's
anyone
the nostalgia
who's
ride.
asking for it. I mean, I suppose it all goes back to the Tupac hologram, right?
Yes.
The
I
Elvis
think
hologram.
so. Right.
And well, no, I guess it's our fault, isn't it? It's our fault. We went crazy for that.
Maybe.
A lot of
But I also
people
think
who
it's,
should know better went crazy.
I
for
also
that.
think it's just it's part and parcel of like what they can do with technology right now. And so because they can do it, they're going to do it because they think this is what people want to see.
I mean, that's the only like exercise you need to do to prove that this is a complete fallacy. Take it out of the movie, watch the movie. Does it affect anything? No.
No, of course
Every
not.
single time.
Right.
Every single... I mean, I'm just tired of it. Anyway, that's not what your point was, so let's move on.
No, I'm happy to pause for a rant.
And it's not that
time.
and it's not that egregious in this one, actually.
Agreed. Yeah.
But
hey,
what hey, why not cast someone of George Carlin's stature
right
in the surrogate role?
Yeah.
How about that? Sometimes it's that easy.
Now, does that mean
you Frank Pentangeli it? That's what you do,
right?
I don't know who that would be.
Yeah, I mean,
probably someone who's about to be arrested for sexual harassment, so it might not work.
Well, no, maybe it's Dave Chappelle.
And that's completely unproblematic doing that. I guess you could have got away with it in 2020.
Yeah, you're right.
Then you wouldn't have been able to watch it. Then it would have soured as time went on, so you're fucked either way.
What if it was Chris Rock or Will Smith?
Bob Newhart. There you go. It's the only safe choice.
Yeah. Mel Brooks, is he still here?
He is.
Right?
He very much is, yeah.
Yeah. So does that mean you don't like Kristen Schaal? Because that was one of my next questions. We have Kristen Schaal, we have the two daughters, and then the one I take more issue with, because it's such a Hollywood thing, is we have two new wives playing the babes, but of course they're younger.
It's offensive.
Yeah.
It's an ageist bent that it's hard to get over.
That one really bothered me.
It's really hard to... I mean, it's terrible for a number of reasons.
Especially because one of them in particular, I'd have to look it up, but it looked like she was in her 20s.
Right. And it's just like... It seems to be there solely to flatter male ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no other reason to cast younger actors there than to remind everyone how well Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters have worn.
Right.
And it fucks up the timeline.
But exactly right.
And those girls aren't 30.
No, yeah, because
they should actually probably be older than 30 because of all that. Because they were in a time. They went to the future and were like a year old.
They don't look old enough to have the daughters.
They don't look old enough to have the daughters, but they look old enough to have... No, they don't even look old enough to have those daughters, but those daughters aren't old enough to be those daughters.
Right.
This is a time travel movie that cannot get the basics of time down.
Yeah, right.
That's a problem. And for no apparent reason other than Hollywood ageism as it relates to women.
Yeah, right.
And the double standard of the fact that men can be as old as they want and will keep the same actors. As soon as a woman gets over a certain age, you have to recast her.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucked up, man. And I'm really surprised that a 2020 movie is going along with this bullshit.
Well, the one thing I'll say, because I'm looking right now at Samara Weaving, and she is 30 years old.
Okay.
So I'll give the movie a break on that one. I have to look up the other daughter,
but then that makes me wonder what, like, story-wise, what have they been doing all these years?
Yeah, right.
Like, these feel like teenagers.
That's
These
the
feel
other
like they're
thing.
right out of high
She
school.
is 30, but they feel like Bill and Ted from the first two movies. They feel they're that
Yeah.
age.
Yeah, no, I found it offensive on every level, and insults to my intelligence and my politics.
Those two parts are, but is Kristen Shaw a surrogate?
Oh yeah, that was your question.
A worthy surrogate for you?
I mean,
I also find it strange that we're learning for the first time that Rufus was. I mean, obviously George Carlin's dead, so the idea of a daughter makes sense. But
we see his wife.
I was gonna. That was my next
who
point.
is
Like we see
something of a
Holland
comedy
Taylor.
legend. Yeah, something of a comedy legend in her own right.
Sure.
And I don't want to take that away from her. So they kind of split the difference, haven't they? They've got
right.
It's like we've split Rufus into a well-respected comedic actor and, one of the bright lights of the modern comedy scene.
Yeah.
Which is Christian. And I think she's excellent. I think she's certainly prolific enough to be playing this role. I don't think I think she's miscast. I'm gonna say it out loud. I think there's absolutely. If you're gonna have Kristen Schaal, let her be Kristen Schaal.
Well, that was my point.
There's like a ton of other actors I could think would do this role better, and that's not her fault.
No, because the script writes her in a certain way.
Right, as a kind of valley girl, like a sort of.
Right.
Yeah, like
because it's all wrapped up in her relationship with her mom, which is, I guess, supposed to be mined for comedy, but there's there's no comedy there, right?
Yeah.
So that's a problem, and you're not using what Kristen Schaal would be great at.
No, and it's not that, and we know she can do that within the frame of a big Hollywood movie because of the Toy Story movies.
Sure.
And isn't. No, and there's other examples as well. You're able to do that even with an alternative comedian. But I think there is something, and again, this speaks to this huge rift between early 90s comedies and comedies today. Like the 1991 Bill and Ted is packed with cult pop icons and the best character actors in their ilk, and again, what comes as standard now is an interchangeable white guy from SNL,
right?
Sketch comedy woman.
Yeah.
It's not and I'm not throwing shit at that. I am throwing shit at the fact that when you make a comedy movie, you're casting from the bottom up.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was going, well, who's literally the best people we get? Not in comedy at all.
Right.
And this is going, well, who's big in the sketch scene? Who's on TV right now? We could get one of those white guys.
Who would
from
people
SNL.
recognize and like?
There's about 8 of them. They all look the same. Just grab one.
Yeah.
I know his name is Beck Bennett, and it's unfair to say that, and it's just part of the problem is the culture of TV sketch comedy that he's in. Not his problem.
Right.
Nonetheless, when I see him, I think, oh, there's that interchangeable white guy from SNL.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I think
and this movie suffers from what we were just talking about with the princesses and their casting, but you're keeping Missy. You're keeping Hal Landon Jr. You know what I mean? Like,
in a way, I'm like, oh, thank God.
I'm thankful that they at least have those two.
Yeah.
But when you juxtapose that about over recasting the princesses, like it makes that part of it even more offensive.
It does. It certainly does. It's also, I think in the minds of the people who wrote this movie and directed this movie, they think they're doing more with the princesses than Bogus Journey did.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's fair to say that they were underused in Bogus
That is
Journey.
fair, sure.
And offensively used because they're just damsels in distress for the entire movie.
Yeah.
And, that's a product of the time.
That's a 1991, yeah, right.
Right. However, going in and out of phone booths is not
does
the
not
same as doing
constitute
something.
Exactly. It doesn't count.
Sure, they're not victims. They're pressing the numbers and they're traveling through time. But all we see is them getting in and out of phone booths.
Let me ask you this. I kept having this idea that, at the end of Bogus Journey, we've married the princesses, we have 2 kids.
Yeah.
So to me, there's a very simple reason why Bill and Ted have not made the song yet. It's because they've been focused on being great dads.
That makes sense to me.
That's a perfectly,
I find no trace of it in this movie.
Exactly. So
But that makes total sense to me, yes. And it'd be a good way.
So if you have the same framework, if you have that the time is unstable, you have to make this song in whatever it is, 12 hours or 7 hours or however long they gave them, I forget. And it's the first time in their lives that they forget about their children and they're just focused on the songs and they're doing this and they're doing this and they're doing this. And then you bring in the element of, hey, Dad, we have an idea. Dads, we have an idea. Hey, I can't listen to you right now. We have to focus on this. Please go away. And then,
despite the fact that sounds a little too much like Rocky V, I like it.
Right.
But as we said, it's not the idea that's bad.
Right.
It's the execution.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I
these are the things that were swirling in my head while I was watching this movie that made me think.
But yeah.
Take one more pass. Like, just think about this just a little bit, because.
But isn't that part of the same problem that we were talking about before? That this kind of, like, having the characters appear exactly the same as they did the last time you saw them means that you can't do a storyline like that, because you can't imagine any growth in between the 2 movies from character.
From a character perspective, I think it's a little interesting that they did mature because they were focused on parenthood, and they weren't as focused on their own music.
In your version, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not. Oh, okay.
What I'm saying, no, I'm not talking about your imaginary film.
Yes.
I'm talking about the one that we both watched.
The one we watched. You're absolutely right.
And it's the same in Force Awakens. Like, in the Force Awakens, they have to come up for a reason as to why.
We're gonna have to do that series next. You're ready to talk about it.
I'm just, yeah, but I'm not the first person to say that. It's preposterous that Han Solo hasn't learned anything from being a parent, or all those things that you're just talking about. And then they have to concoct a reason as to why, oh yeah, he did change for a while, but then he went back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't even make that excuse in this movie. It's just like it's a static line. He's made a beeline from the end of Bogus Journey.
Yeah.
Because the idea is these guys have learned nothing over the years. And it's...
Which we know is not I mean, just based on how the last movie ended,
right?
We know that they're such accomplished musicians now, so
yeah,
they have the skill,
right?
And you'd think that being a parent would, bear this idea of.
I suppose they have just suggested that the arc has kind of gone full circle, right? Because they've had their success, they presumably gained some kind of self-knowledge and parented for a while, and then went back to this when things went bad.
Right.
I mean, the movie's not... I'm extrapolating quite a bit here, because the movie's not giving me any of that.
I mean, I think it kind of sort of is. That seemed evident to me, everything you're saying.
But they wouldn't... There's no way... They can't plausibly you can't.
But I also have the benefit of having just watched Bogus Journey, and seeing the credits and knowing all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I admit that when I first saw this movie, I hadn't seen Bogus Journey, and I was willing to accept anything that it was telling me about. But then seeing Bogus Journey, it's like, oh, those characters have already developed beyond the state that we're seeing them now.
Yeah, right.
So what made them go back? Again, Han Solo in Force Awakens is like a pre-New Hope Han Solo somehow.
Yeah,
in his fucking 70s. So it's like, what the fuck is going on here? I think it it just fundamentally doesn't work if you attack it this way. I
Right.
just don't think it works.
There's something, to me, again, because we were talking the other day on our last episodes about how long they waited for a script, and they had to get a script that, was really worth doing. And to me, they latched on to just a few ideas. It was, one, the kids,
Yeah.
and the kids would be like them. Two, the destabilization. The reverting back to the excellent adventure by having the kids go back in time and get people. And then
they're also going through time as well.
Yeah. And then the last thing they wanted was, these different versions of Bill and Ted.
Well, you've got to have that. I mean, that's just...
That's what they
wanted. In this
wanted.
series, you've got to have more doppelgangers than multiplicity. Right? And we really do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a list out there of the different Bills and Teds in this movie, but I certainly can't count them on two hands.
Was that section of the movie interesting for you?
It just seemed like a prosthetic makeup and prosthetic showcase to me.
That's how I felt. Yeah.
There was no characterization or comic material in those scenes.
Right.
I desperately wanted there to be.
It was seeing them as sort of bums, seeing them ending up faking being rich and famous, seeing them as buff prison inmates.
A lot of those are the same. Also, a lot of those are the same idea. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of those, they all kind of they're not distinct enough from each other, apart from the prosthetic the appearance of them.
Right?
And this is the other thing that gets me. No matter where we go in time or space, we seem to be in the same corridor throughout this movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is why this movie to me has an almost like a digital era Ed Wood feel about it. I really like when they go to the hotel, they go to the therapist's office, they go to see Jimi Hendrix, they go to see Louis Armstrong. They seem to be going down the same corridor.
Right.
And they're not going down the same corridor, but it's being filmed in such the scenes are being filmed in such a generic way that it really feels like that.
Yeah.
And added to the fact that there is literally no this is a movie with more time hopping than any of time and space hopping than any of the other movies combined.
Right.
And yet there is no dynamism in those transitions.
Mm-hmm.
We go right from one to the other as if we're just cutting from one scene to another.
Because we are.
Right, but you shouldn't feel like that.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen Excellent Adventure in many years, but I guarantee I'll stake my house on it that those transitions are visually exciting.
Right.
And orally dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not. Almost, and this goes back, what was the name of the director again? I can't remember his name.
Dean Parasot?
Right. Like, I look at it and I think, yeah, I see how you did a great episode of Justified. I see how you did a great episode of Deadwood.
Right.
You are wrong for this material. And then I saw Galaxy Quest and thought, oh, well, that's clearly not true. But I guess the truth is this guy is a good director. His approach to directing is not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's not jibing with the material,
but in
this context.
Because so many of my notes have to, there's just something off with the tone. There's something off with the intention. There's something off with, what we're choosing to show the audience.
Did you spend most of the movie thinking, what is the primary joke of this scene? Like, what is the comic intention of this line?
Well, I mean, sometimes, you'd either think that or you'd be disappointed that you'd say the joke of this scene is that they're buff inmates. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not enough.
I guess I felt both true as well. Yeah, I felt that there's no substance behind this.
Right.
But other times I actually thought,
well, and you watch it back to back.
I can see that there's a comic. I think what I'm trying to say is that I saw moments where I was like, I can see that this is a comic structure.
Yeah.
I can see that the dialogue and the setup is a comic structure, but I don't know what the joke is.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Like even I have to say sadlery
I
in the
know.
death scenes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the death scenes. I'm saying this is the flavor of comedy without the content.
The only reason it's funny is because of Sadler himself.
Yeah, when he does when he does this kind of offhand stuff,
Yeah.
like it made me think of Bill Murray and the way he would just randomly do some kind of a gesture or action
Yeah.
that would take the scene. You'd remember that forever, even if the scene itself wasn't that funny. Like he's got some great moments like that in Kingpin, where he just steals the entire movie,
Sure.
sticking his finger down the down the back of another bowler's pants, before he takes it.
It's
and Bill and Sadler's doing all that here.
Yeah.
But in the actual devised comic set pieces, it's still not funny. Him getting hit with a swing ball, playing hopscotch by himself. It's like it's like I get where you go. Well, with the swing ball, I mean, you can literally see that joke coming a mile away.
Yeah.
But it's like it's like it's the essence of it's like a fragrance of comedy.
Exactly, because there are things that I like. I like it when he's talking with the daughters about music,
especially.
Yeah, when Death.
Absolutely.
Like
yes.
I love that part, and I love the line where he says,
when he's allowed to speak, he's very funny.
Yeah. Did you like the hook and the double down with Dr. D? Like all of that shit.
I gotta say though, if I'd like to give this movie credit for that, but that's really all in the credits of Bogus Journey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If their best joke in this movie is something we've already done in Bogus Journey, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean that's.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's take a second break and then we'll
I
come back.
must just say one more thing. Like I'm actually even offended by the fact that they brought William Sadler back for this. I think it's mercenary because.
Oh wow.
He's a he's a fan favorite character, and I think they just wanted to leech off that. They didn't actually want.
And they didn't give him anything.
No.
Yeah. All right. On that sad note,
they did him dirty.
Yeah, they did him dirty.
They've done him dirty.
On that sad note, we'll take a break and come right back because now we'll get to what I really have problems with. Right after this.
If you're anything like me, you spend the majority of the day wondering whether you want coffee, beer, or wine. Whichever way you fall, Brew Bar has you covered. Located in the heart of 3rd Avenue Village in glorious downtown Chula Vista, California, which is also my neck of the woods, Brew Bar is a coffee shop, bar, and eatery rolled into one delightful package. Tim and Alex run the place, and let me tell you, listeners, these guys know their coffee. And after you've been in their company, so will you. They turned me on to pour over, and it's literally all I drink now. If for some crazy reason you don't want to try the best coffee in the world, they've got espresso drinks, all kinds of teas, and even coffee cocktails. You heard me? Coffee tails. And we're just getting started. Bottle service on craft beer and wine, alcoholic and caffeinated potions, an all-day food menu with plenty of vegan options. All served up in an atmosphere hip enough to know you're getting the best quality, but not too hip that you feel the need to drive to 7-Eleven and get a bucket of brown swill. Brew Bar. It's the best place to be for beer, wine, coffee, and tea. And if you go, you might even see me.
We're back. Laughing already.
Laughing at how my notes look like the ramblings of an angry old man.
On your lawn, shaking your fist.
This soup is too cold.
Well, that's certainly going to be the major theme for me at the end of this movie. But
do you want to know what really makes me think that?
tell
from
me.
what I'm looking at. So this is the note I have. Kid Cudi. Is this guy famous?
I have the same note. But
I don't think a Bill and Ted movie should remind you how out of touch you are.
Because I just had to take it because I know that I am completely musically illiterate.
Right.
All the RAM in my head is devoted to movies. So,
oh, interesting.
You know, like when I hear songs, mostly it's, oh, I know what movie that's in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
But I really had the sense, I kept writing notes like, who is that? Should I know who that is? Is that really him or is that an actor?
Not that's a good question. Not just that, but I also wrote the note of, think how funny this would be if it was literally anybody else doing this.
Yeah.
And because, of course, the shtick, if you want to call it that, is that he's the person, he's the...
he knows the quantum physics of...
Right, he's the designated time travel expert.
Yeah.
And he's also like a human exposition dump.
Right.
And then I thought, where have I seen this before? Alice Cooper in Wayne's World.
Right, yeah.
And that works because you know who Alice Cooper is. He's a capable performer and can actually perform the comedy of it.
Yeah.
Which Kid Cudi, don't know who he is, but he ain't an actor.
But he's not an actor.
I know that from this movie. I don't know that from anywhere else.
I have lines like, what about Elvis Costello? I know him.
And that's another great example. But I don't know, this might blow my... No, it's not going to blow my credit check because it should be talked about now.
All right.
I did notice that Weird Al Yankovic is in the credits. And I had to imagine a parallel universe in which Kid Cudi, whoever the fuck he is in the credits. And Weird Al Yankovic is in the movie.
Oh.
And suddenly it all makes sense.
Wow. Oh,
like, why would you
Weird
reach
Al
out to
was
Weird
in that
Al...
part.
Why would you reach out to Weird Al Yankovic to be in a video upload section of your credits?
Yeah.
When there's stuff he can do in the movie that people other than, like, youngsters would know who he is. And he's still known. He's still a known quantity.
Mm-hmm.
He's the democratic choice. For the most possible people who will know who you are. And Kid Cudi, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, is the least democratic choice for that.
Well, remember, we're two angry old men.
I know. But this movie makes me feel that way, and that's why I resent it. But you know what I mean. Like, look at Bill and Ted's target demographic.
Right, exactly.
Right? It's going to be men our age or up.
Exactly. It's for us.
It's for us.
So for fuck's sake.
So why is Kid Cudi in this movie?
For fuck's sake, have it appeal to us.
I don't even think I'm saying his name right. And that's the problem.
And how would you know?
I know how to say Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah. Oh, man. That is fantastic.
But we do also get Dave Grohl.
We do, yeah. We do get him. That's
Which
true.
I guess is our little bit of...
But we don't even...
Our little bit of chum.
We see
a little
him...
bit of chum for men our age.
But we see him... Were you like me? Because we saw him at the door and then never again.
Right. Well, there's
an extensive amount of time we're still in that house. So I kept thinking, you couldn't have kept him another few hours?
Right.
Just give me one more?
And the thing is, like, without having any examples over the top of my head, I feel like Dave Grohl cameos in a lot of stuff. Like, if you see modern media, you're going to see a lot of him. So... I don't think it is this, even though it's not superficially the same as having James Martin from Faith No More.
Faith No More, right.
I don't feel like you could go to any movie in 1991 and see a cameo from Jim Martin. Whereas I feel like Dave Grohl is all over the map.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that might be true. And even if it's not true, it feels like it's true.
Which is the essence of old man rhetoric.
Exactly. All right, before we get to the end, I want to talk about a couple of things.
Please.
I'd like to know your thoughts. One, about the robot.
Oh, God.
And then,
oh, God.
two, let's talk about this first. Let's talk about Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. Because one has been in our lives for a very long time, and one kind of transitioned into directing.
Mm-hmm.
And as I understand it, Alex Winter kind of, went back to his acting roots. He got an acting coach. He really wanted to, do this movie justice. And I think he's, great fun in this movie. I like him as a performer in this movie. And strangely, I mostly like Keanu Reeves, but there are moments where I feel like I'm seeing John Wick. It felt
interesting.
There were times where I wondered if he forgot how to be Ted.
I thought they both carried the movie fine. I don't think it's a John McClane,
No, right.
Bruce Willis, human walnut dilemma. I think it still feels enough like Ted.
All right.
But I do think the weight of doing mostly dramatic parts does show more on
that might be it
than on Keanu Reeves, and also the way that Ted is written, because at one point that they're running into so many of their own duplicates that they even make it part of Ted's character arc that he's afraid of confronting himself. Like that's his kind of emotional through line in the movie,
right,
related to that. And I feel like they wouldn't have given that to 1991 Keanu Reeves to do.
That's interesting.
So you said that there's a heaviness around that movie, and I think a lot of the heaviness is about how Keanu Reeves has changed in our minds, but also as a performer. But I think they're both excellent at carrying the movie. Yes, I think Alex Winter is more entertaining.
Yeah,
of the two, definitely.
Yeah, that's how I
but
felt.
I have no issues with them carrying the movie. It's again. I think at this point, it's the Crystal Skull thing. It's like, does he still look good in the hat? Okay, fine.
Right.
I feel it's the similar kind of thing here. Do they still kind of look like Bill and Ted?
They do. Yeah,
they do.
They both look.
I buy it.
We talked about it, but they both look amazing.
But why the fuck haven't they changed in 30 years?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's
Oh, so I mean, let's talk about the robot, but also no station.
Not yet.
Station does. Oh, I'm on. Oh, we might be thinking similar things, sir.
Well, there's more than one station. Also, we know nothing about stations, so we can do whatever the hell we want. He's just like screenwriting putty. You could do anything with him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Dennis.
Dennis the robot.
We need to talk about Dennis.
We need to talk about Dennis.
So, I remember hearing that Anthony Carrigan from the hit HBO series Barry was being cast in Bill and Ted Face the Music, and thought, great. Love this guy's work in that show. Great addition to the cast. I had it in the back of my mind. He was either replacing William Sadler, and I'll concede to a degree of ableism there because he's known for his alopecia. But also I thought, you want a surrogate kind of comic actor. I can see how it'd be a fluid kind of transition. Then I found out William Sadler's going to be in the movie, so I'm like, okay.
Right.
And yet my instincts were completely right. They're trying to mold another Death-style character.
Well, so yeah, exactly.
From a similar kind of character actor.
Right.
And they're doing that, mostly it seems, by having him in scenes with Death, in the hope that you'll think he's as funny as Death. Right. Unfortunately, William Sadler owns all those scenes.
Yeah.
As he cannot not do. And this poor guy, as zero to work with, and it's just a waste of who is a huge talent.
But
Everyone
that's
knows
the other
this
thing
guy's
I
a
was
huge
going to
talent.
say. I was
Huge waste.
I was lamenting the waste of him because even with what little he has to do, you can tell that there's a brilliant comedic actor.
I can't from this.
Really?
No, I can't from this.
I could tell there was something there.
No, he was swallowed up by the costume, by the effects.
You're not wrong about that. For me, it was
I couldn't see any of, and it's kind of the same with Christian Schall. Like, I can't see any of what I like about him outside of this.
I could see it in his eyes.
Okay.
That, because that's all I had. But
yeah, I was gonna say that's all of the only part of him you can see. And it seemed so deliberate that they were trying to craft another supporting character in the style of Death, and not only failing at every turn, but having him share scenes with Death himself really underlined the disparity. And I think this happens all the time. Like any comic actor gets a degree of credibility for a particular role or a particular body of work, and they get wasted in a comedy movie, and it feels like you never hear from them again. And that's kind of happened to this guy.
Yeah,
it sucks. So it's a huge waste, and Hollywood keeps eating these people up, and all they're trying to do is.
Oh, he's so funny on Barry.
I mean, that's it, yeah.
Fuck.
And when I heard he was in a Bill and Ted movie, I thought that is exactly who they need to be putting in.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
movie.
Yeah.
And where they kind of buried him in this movie is really depressing. That they really didn't know what they had.
Mm-hmm.
And yet another reason why they probably shouldn't have brought Death back. I can't imagine this movie without William Sadler, but it would have given this guy some breathing room.
At least a little.
Yeah. But they wouldn't have written it properly, so
it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter. It's all futile and hopeless, which is the message of this movie.
All right. Let's get to my biggest problem with this movie.
Okay.
All right. I mean, we have to go through some shit for all of our characters to find themselves at a highway marker, which is going to end up being the location for where the greatest song that unites humanity is pulled together.
Right.
The disparate things that this script has managed to pull together, meaning grabbing legends from the girls, from the from the daughters,
Louis Armstrong, Jimi Hendrix,
bringing them all, Mozart, and bringing them to this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
The very thin sort of, as you said earlier, like in the last 5 minutes, it's, hey, the daughters have to help create this.
Right.
Which they're doing with some sort of box that I recognize is probably part of Music Today, but I don't I don't understand.
I think you've outgunned my old madness. I didn't think that was possible.
I don't understand what it is or how it's used.
I am sure it is part of Music Today.
But it looks like...
I think the next time I see you, you're going to be a skeleton.
It looks like a square box for Simon Says. And you can push buttons and things happen.
Don't give don't underestimate what you're saying, because I suspect if you talk to someone who actually DJs for a living, they would look at it and say, yeah, that's a Simon box. Right. That's not how we do it. Yeah. I guarantee you.
That's funny. So at any rate, Death is on base, and you've got, what?
Well, this is the first time we see Death outside of hell.
Yeah, that's true.
So we talked about how tightly structured the last movie was. Mm-hmm. This movie is so disorganized that when they finally get around to recruiting Death into the ensemble, he basically walks into the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So there's a big contrast there.
Absolutely. Yeah, because this movie just meanders.
Right.
But the thing that I really can't get over is the use of time travel to pass out instruments to the world.
Right.
And the reason this song has Bill and Ted's song is become this.
You're generous calling it a song.
Right.
It's this God. I'm gonna out old man you now and say
Go.
God awful come to Jesus hipster chanting.
Yeah.
Is what I call it.
Right.
It's not a song. God gave rock and roll to you. Say what you want about that. That's a song. It's an identifiable song.
Yes.
This is just noise.
Yeah, exactly.
I win the old man game. This is just noise. It's a classic for a reason.
What's it say that the second you said that I thought somebody gets it? He understands. It's just noise. Which is to say nothing of the fact that you cannot pass out instruments to the world and assume they know how to play them. If everybody takes their saxophones and their fucking nonsense that has been passed out, they're going to put them to their mouths or bang on them or do whatever it is that you do with that particular instrument make noise.
That's what it sounds like before you put it through that Simon box.
Maybe. Fucking shit. But the thing that I really take offense to is that this movie in the end misses the point of music, because music, I applaud the sentiment behind it, that we're all
absolutely.
one and we all come together and blah 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 blah. But the point of music is that it can transfix and transport you. It's autobiographical. It reminds us of who we loved and who we were when at a specific time, and Bill and Ted are supposed to create the thing that does that for everyone all at once and brings us together. So the idea that their idea was to just have everybody do it together, to me, is a catastrophic error at the end of this movie that I just can't get over. I mean, it's so upsetting.
I'll double down on what you said. This is my note, and this is like in the middle of the scene.
Okay.
By the way, how is reality falling apart? Time folding in on itself? Why is the phone booth interdimensional? How can everyone play music? So that problem you had was at the bottom of my list. But it was the thought of, it was that exact same thought, like, these people can't play these instruments.
Yeah. Why
are you giving it to them? And that just opened up, and then I realized this whole movie doesn't explain a single thing.
Yeah.
So I'm in total agreement with you on that. It's interesting you said it's like, I appreciate the sentiment of how we're going all together, because what I think they were going for is REM's Everybody Hurts video. What it came out as, Kendall Jenner's Pepsi ad.
Oh, fuck.
But thematic, see, this is the interesting thing, because thematically, I think they're onto something. Well, I know they're onto something. Because the movie thematically has been about how Bill and Ted's generation has let down their children's generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not given them a culture of their own. It's made them leech off our culture.
Right.
And made them less than.
That is interesting.
And that's really interesting. It's a really interesting idea. And you know how I know it's an interesting idea? Because it's the basis of Cobra Kai and they fucking nail it. So for it to kind of come back, for that to thematically rebound at this point in the movie in a way that destroys the entire idea of both, as you say, music and Bill and Ted as an ethos, is just all, it's a disaster.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's not good.
I was just gonna say, yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
That's a depressing ending.
It is, but it also, I mean, I don't know how much time they had to make this movie, whether,
30 years.
Well, 30 years, but there's moments where it seems really rushed.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's a VO button on this movie that reminded me of Beneath the Planet of the Apes. It was so kind of like, so tacked on. Like, when we had that, I think I don't even know whose VO it is, which is maybe a problem. But who's narrating the movie?
Oh, I have no idea.
Because the movie has narration.
You're right.
I think it's Tia.
Is it?
Thea? I think so. It's one of the daughters.
One of the daughters.
That's a problem. That neither of us know that. But I felt like I accidentally skipped the last act of the movie and went straight to the end. Oh, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that happens in this scene that really bugs me. Bill and Ted reconcile with their wives, and the scene plays as if this has been the thrust of the movie.
Yeah, right.
But it's really...
But it's not.
A B, maybe even a C story.
Yeah.
So, I feel like there's chunks of this movie missing. Not that I want to see them.
I need
the old
more.
Superman 4 dilemma, isn't it? It's like, this movie was cut down, but what was it cut down from? And then, but once we got that, I mean, the hipster chanting is kind of offensive, but it's also offensive and dated. Like, I think music is, the little I know about modern day music, I think we've moved, I associate this with like 2009, 2010, when this kind of god-awful hipster chanting was the thing.
It was
like, I don't hear it as much now. I think it's like 10 years old. You know what else is 10 years old? And I'm definitely transitioning into my credit check here.
Go.
Video uploads. Which we saw in Rocky Balboa in 2009. And we still haven't come up with a better way of ending a movie.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That's great.
And it's the same thing where it speaks to exactly what you're saying about, the message is we're all doing it together. We're all playing our part. And it's like, yeah, and then the video uploads are like saying that it's like we're simultaneous interactivity is the future.
Yeah.
And that's such a hollow message.
Yeah.
Especially when applied to what this movie is actually about, which, as you said, is the importance of music and the importance of a certain kind of agency.
Sure.
So even in a way, you could say that in trying to show how Bill and Ted's generation has let down their children, it's kind of let them off the hook. Because they just go,
right.
Well, we'll just pass it on to everyone.
Yeah.
Throughout time and space. And we're off the hook again, right? We don't have to start, like, paying for people's college education or anything, right?
Please.
I mean, the chalk and cheese contrast between the credits of Bogus Journey and this. Credits are so plain and corporate. You feel like they'd given up even before they started to transcribe these credits.
Right.
It was like, let's just let this happen. We need to just do this. Bogus Journey stretched the fun to the very last second of the movie.
Yeah.
This movie seems determined to give us no fun. And then we
have a button.
Right, a post-credit sting.
Yeah.
And I started coming up with names for the different doppelgangers, and these two, the aging, nearly dead Bill and Ted, I call Pill and Dead. And Here's what I like. I like that there's a kind of moment of closure on the series, and it ends in a moment of affirmation.
All right.
So I don't have any issues with that.
Yeah, no.
They're doing what Burger's Journey did. It was like, you want to end it here, you can. If you want to go on, here's a few different options. So I like that we have some callback to that. Again, tone and execution of this scene. This scene should be uplifting,
Right.
and moving, and it's like a drama about an old people's home
Yeah.
where they're poisoning the residents. I sincerely think the director thought this was a more sinister scene
Bill and Ted.
than what he's actually doing.
You want to yell, Bill and Ted, stop taking the pills they're giving you. They're killing you from the inside out.
I mean, it's like the final scene of 6 Feet Under. It's fucking. There's nothing uplifting about it at all.
No.
And then that's this whole movie.
But that's
in
I
microcosm.
was just gonna say that wraps the whole. That's the nutshell of the movie, because they think that the prosthetic joke is enough to carry the whole scene. There's nothing else behind it.
Well, there's no joke. There's no
Right.
content beyond that, right?
No, not at all.
Ugh. How dare they put the classic Orion logo at the beginning of this movie?
No, it made me so excited and then disappointed me so much.
But I mean, I'm going right back to the beginning here because I didn't mention it, but the Orion logo comes up and then it's immediately replaced with a logo for Endeavor Content.
Yeah.
If ever there was a side that Orion logo's in the wrong place. And then Hammerstone Studios, which appears to be this retro 80s style movie production company. And I was like, there you go. You have the Mighty Wind definition of Nowtro and retro right there. Hammerstone is retro. Orion is Nowtro. Oh.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, that's it. I mean, anything left for you?
I think we've covered everything, sadly.
Yeah.
I wish I had more high points.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't. Maybe let me try and end on oh yeah. So earlier on in the movie, I've made the point that, this movie doesn't understand time and it doesn't really make use of the time travel concept in a way that is useful. Early on in the movie, they talk about how they're going to go into the future after they have written the song that they can't write, and they're actually employing a time travel theory known as the bootstrap paradox. And I thought that was a really interesting premise. It doesn't really go anywhere. They don't do anything beyond that. The bootstrap paradox is, I think the example that's given is of you go back in time to listen to Beethoven performing music. It turns out he hasn't written any of the songs that you know. You bring your sheet music from the present back, put it in with him. He performs that music. Who wrote the music?
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of a version of that. So
yeah,
there's some actual, there's some like Terminator Genesis-wise. There is actual time travel theory in here, but that doesn't necessarily make it a good film.
Right.
So there's the lesson to be learned. You can have as much accurate time travel theory as you want in your movie. You will not necessarily make a good movie out of it.
Not necessarily, indeed.
I forget why that was supposed to be positive. So it started off that way.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Do you have a differing opinion about Bill and Ted Face the Music? You're going to have to let us know.
86%. Some of you must.
Yeah. 82. But that's a lot for this movie.
I'm an 86, that 82.
So find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. Let us know your feelings and where you stand. Do we have it right? Do we have it wrong? We will read you on air. All right, for Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. When you hear us next time, we're going to try and fix this, I guess. We're going to pitch our sequels.
An even more old man thing to do.
Yes.
Tell young people how they got things wrong.
Exactly. Say goodbye, Tom.
Yeah, how can a robot even die?
Nice.
Not as good as Robot Chubby, but
Heard.
not bad.
Good. Yeah. All right. Until next time, everyone.